Greetings, Wargamers. We're your hosts, Trevor,
Jay,
Josh,
and this is
Chain Attack.
Chain Attack is sponsored by Discount Games Incorporated. Discount Games Incorporated specializes in customer service, low prices, and prompt shipping. You can find our web store at www.discountgamesinc.com.
Welcome to Chain Attack. I'm your host, Trevor, and I'm rapidly closing in on collection level 1000. Roughly half of a Tony Riccio.
Wow.
Well, half of a Tony Riccio of like weeks
whenever
ago or whatever.
whenever he said he was at 2000, which is a long time ago.
I'm Jay, and I did some test clothes fittings to figure out what to wear for some upcoming trips, and was happy to see that I shrunk back down to fit into some shirts that didn't fit in May, so that was nice.
Nice. I'm Josh, and on a clothing-related comment, the Blarney store or whatever, man, they delivered fast, and I'm really sad that I'm probably going to wait till actual Christmas for my wife to open them, but I'm super jazzed for what I ordered. And I have mixed emotions now about taking a family trip for Christmas, because after this recording with my co-hosts, my family, we will be starting a journey, which is funny since I just got home from a journey. But anyway, we're going to take a week trip to the Redwood Forests, and my mixed emotions are like, I remembered while we were packing why I just want all my kids to come home, because I had to pick board games to try to like fit into the suitcases, and if they would just come home, I got the whole library there to pull from. So like, I don't think I'm taking John Company on vacation with me, and it's breaking my heart.
So did you guys end up picking vegan sushi as one of your meal options in San Francisco?
I can't truthfully say that we've picked anything. So
Yes.
I probably better get that. Some of those things I probably better make a couple reservations.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
It's still in the possibility space, Jay.
So what did you order your wife on Blarney.com?
Oh man, let me see if I can. I mean, basically like a cool knit cap and scarf, and then just this like really, I thought it was a really cool looking sweater. I should find what they called it. They called it an Aaron Cable hood.
Mm-hmm, yep.
Aaron Cable hooded coatigan. Yes, it's a coatigan. But that's the one that I'm like, oh.
A what? A coat?
Like coat, IGAN, right? What is that a mesh of, Jay?
Coat and cardigan, probably?
Yeah. That's probably right. You're probably right, Trevor. Anyway, I'm like, this is the one that I'm like, maybe she needs to open that and take it with us to San Francisco,
Right.
Because it's just chilly enough there that it feels like a coatigan would be the right kind of thing to be wearing.
That's fair.
I might break. Break between now and this evening. And be like, you need to open this, dear.
when are you guys getting back?
We get back on next Friday, so the 23rd.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Trevor, does your wife know yet that you're going to be presentless at Christmas?
She's aware, yes.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
The funny thing is, like, I might end up that way too, Trevor, not quite as deliberately as you, but like, again, because this trip is happening before Christmas, and like our family has a tradition that we started a few years back called Yola Boca Flood, where we draw names and you get the person that you drew a name, a book, and usually we do it on Christmas Eve. We spend a portion of that evening just reading the new books that everybody got together, right?
Uh-huh.
And my wife has me. And I know for a fact that she hasn't gotten the book yet, and I was packing up because we're gonna open it on this trip because my kids, we won't be together on Christmas Eve and Christmas this year. Like one of them works the holiday, and the other one's gonna be with her in-laws, blah blah blah. And so we're gonna open the books a couple days early while we're still on the trip. And anyway, my wife made a comment last night that gave me 99% certainty she has not only not even thought about the book to get me, like certainly has not, and that may be the case for other presents too.
So my wife basically, she made a mad dash scramble to. I will not be presentless, but I have a pretty good idea of what she bought. So I'll get like the equivalent of the Christmas socks and tie.
Nice. It won't quite be Gift of the Magi level tragedy, so yeah, that's good, I guess.
It's pretty tough to reach that level.
Well, so things with Discount Games Inc. The new Song of Ice and Fire minis are in stock, as is the new Boba Fett Daimyo model for Star Wars Legion and the Siege of Coruscant pack for X-Wing. So check all those out. We also, of course, have the new releases for Games Workshop. So check those out as well. I have a quick rant I have to share about.
I could feel the rant coming. The change of tone was terrifying.
The latest, trend in the gaming industry, and I mean it makes sense. It's fine, whatever, I guess. But so previously, you would, if the manufacturer messed up your product and it had a defect, something was missing, etc. Previously, you would contact the manufacturer and they would mail out something to you. And a lot of companies have changed that policy now to where if there's an issue, you're supposed to contact the retailer. And so now I am the, returns department.
The point of the spear.
Yeah, for fixing these issues.
And what are you supposed to? This bugs me too, because what are you supposed to do with it?
In general, what I'm supposed to do is give the person a new game or a new product.
And then do you return the old product to the manufacturer, or do they just write it off with you?
So, like, if it's Games Workshop, they're just like, okay, cool, here's a credit. If it's and there's, you don't have to return anything. If it's Asmodee, I have to send a picture of it, and then they're like, okay, cool, here's a credit.
What a pain in the butt. That is a pain in the butt for everyone, honestly. I would rather contact the manufacturer and get a replacement direct from them.
I mean, on the plus side, I mean, assuming I have it in stock, which a lot of times I do, but it's not a foregone conclusion that it's not sold out.
Right.
They will get it faster from me than from Games Workshop because, their shipping times are in weeks right now. But the part that's annoying to me is that my previous sales rep, with Games Workshop, he would give me a credit for, the cost of the item. And he would also, if it was an online customer, he would give me a credit for the shipping cost. And evidently, and now he's gone on to greener pastures, not with the company anymore. And evidently, he was just using like his discretionary powers as a sales rep to do that. And my new sales rep is like, I can't give you a refund for the shipping costs. You just have to eat that. And so now, anytime Games Workshop makes a mistake, I'm the one who pays.
You pay for it, yeah.
Yeah. So, which, I mean, whatever.
I mean, how do you pass that on to the consumer?
You have to raise his prices.
Yeah,
general,
actually,
right?
the most common solution that I'll do with it is I'll contact the customer and be like, was there anything else you were planning on ordering that I can throw this in with? If so, great. If not, I'm more than happy to ship it out on its own. And in most cases, the people will order something else for me to ship it with. And so, that's nice of them. But it's just that whole process is a pet peeve of mine currently.
Justifiably.
All right, so we talked behind the paywall about us being old men. We're going to continue that topic. And last Saturday, we got up at 6 something in the morning to play board games with each other because that's what old, I guess.
I mean, the only step we haven't taken yet is that they're not either like a push the chits around war game, right, Jay, or an 18xx rail simulator. That's probably the only step left we have to level up fully.
I mean,
to old men.
Really, we need to start doing some estate planning or something, but make sure that the final step is that we're in a retirement home together.
Oh gosh, you're talking my language. I stare at my new IRA that I just created for my old 401k every day and go, what have I done?
Oh yeah, sorry Jay. For a minute there I was thinking of estate planning the game, which I think, Obsession is the board game that we should probably consider for that. But yeah, actual estate planning, don't get me started. That's a hobby of mine. I love that stuff.
Brian does feel very strongly that when it's time for us to, sell our house, sell DGI, whatever, that he wants us to end up in Hawaii, which I can't really fault him for wanting to be gone from the Idaho winters. So
yeah, it feels like a good trade for him.
So I signed up to come play John Company with my dear friends. I knew really nothing about the game heading into it, and of course did not watch any videos or anything in prep. And so that's the game that we're classic. That's the game that we're going to review and talk about. And before I'm kind of curious, real quick, as an intro to this. First off, can you give a quick definition of the terms Eurogame and Ameritrash, and then where you think this falls?
So if I were to define Eurogames, I would define as like dry themed, very what am I trying to say? Like low randomized, high strategy games is kind of the broadest definition of Eurogame to me. And Ameritrash, I would call like heavily themed, a lot of luck and, lower strategic or decisions required. That's pretty broad, but is that a fair broad definition on both of them?
Sure.
I think it's a good question, and I think that this actually leans more into the Ameritrash column. I think.
Yeah, so I'm gonna borrow my definitions from Board Game Geek from somebody else.
Yeah.
But I think they pretty much follow along what Josh has said. Ameritrash, a random element often follows player decisions, often determining how successful or effective those decisions were. In Eurogames, any random elements usually occur before players make their decisions, so they generally know the consequences of their actions. You in Eurogames, you have set outcomes and you have more choices usually. Ameritrash games generally have more theme and the outcomes are not necessarily determined. And no game I think fits perfectly within those silos anymore. I think they're kind of on a scale. And certainly I think Ameritrash games have evolved somewhat. I don't think that's completely fair anymore.
So the thing that kind of surprised me about this game is that, I get there, I find out that the theme of the game is that we are going to be trying to run the East India Trading Company, and that's basically what the game is. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is a dry, boring theme that is going to be a Euro game. It's right up there with we're trading spices in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, it's definitely the kind of theme you would see on a Euro, right?
Yes. But then we get into the game, and it has a lot more randomization than what I would consider a pure Euro game to normally be. So there's a lot of times you take an action and then you roll a d6 to determine the outcome of the action, and some of these dice rolls are like critically important.
Oh yeah,
it's
like
not
make
like
or break the entire company, basically.
yes, yes, and also like at the start of the game, everyone gets basically there's all these starting roles or positions or duties,
Offices
etc.
of the company,
Offices,
yeah.
yes, that get divvied out randomly. At least I'm assuming that it's random. Is that correct?
It is random.
Yes,
There
it
is a
is.
variant where you can draft them.
Oh, okay. That would make sense. But it also, and maybe this is probably my inexperience with the game, but it feels like people could have very different starting strengths in the game.
Yes,
Bas-
especially with the random
Yes.
deal. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
As a matter
So-
of fact, well, Trevor and I guess maybe we'll talk about it in a minute, but we did play a second time, and
Yeah.
Trevor and I saw some of that happen.
I'm not. So I'm gonna counter that a little bit by saying I actually think that with experience, I think some of those starting
Sure.
cards that get dealt out are a little more balanced than maybe we initially believed. They balance the position that they're giving you with the amount of money they give you. So depending on which set of cards you get, you might end up with a lot of money, or you might end up with a lot more power.
That's
And
true.
if you do not know how to use that power to your advantage,
Mhm.
then definitely the stronger cards are the money cards early on. So yes, I think that especially probably the first, and this is a complex game. I think the first couple of times, maybe even 3 or 4 times you play the game, you will not be in a position where you know exactly what to do with those rolls.
Yeah, I mean it's games that have strategic depth. I don't really think it's fair to say like this, other than it does impact your enjoyment potentially, but I can't say if a game is balanced on a complex game after a few plays when I don't know the strategic depth or the ways to fight the imbalances or whatever. So
Yeah, right. Yeah, great point.
Yeah, and I will say that while I agree with you that there's especially because the main mechanic of the game is that you roll d6 as Jay mentioned, and you're looking for 1s or 2s to succeed. 3s or 4s don't succeed, but they're on a major failure, and then 5s and 6s are a major failure. And you take the lowest die out of a number of dice, and you can buy more dice to mitigate your risk. But
Usually.
usually, but there are times when the dice just say no. As an example,
first game I watched you roll triple sixes.
The second game got worse.
Trevor's family fortunes took a bad turn right then.
Yeah, the second game got worse. I mean, honestly, I had multiple games where I thought I was mitigating my risk with the appropriate number of dice, and still ended up rolling trash and having things flipped. And you could say, well, you didn't mitigate enough to make it a sure thing. But the truth is with dice, you can never mitigate it enough to make it a sure thing.
Right.
You could buy 40 dice and roll all 6s on.
You also can't afford to
Yeah,
spend
mitigate
the
that.
the
hard.
company's entire budget to.
Yeah,
you
but-
can't,
that
you
far.
can't spend £6 to make £4.
Yeah.
Or you
Yeah.
should probably.
Yeah, that's very true. But I think that I hesitate to call it full on Ameritrash because
That's what I say. It only
because-
leans into that column.
because you do know what the return is in most situations, and it's just a matter of how much are you willing to put in, how greedy are you, and how much risk are you willing to take. And as a guy who works in risk management every day, it's enticing to me, and I love risk management games. I love Raw is a good example of a risk management game where you can push your luck
Yeah.
But you really have to decide, is this worth it, or can I just take what I've got? And so anyway, I totally understand how you can feel, because some people don't like that element.
Yeah,
and
it was.
it is painful to spend £3 to earn £5, and then roll straight sixes and make £0. Have
Yeah,
lost 3 and gained nothing.
I guess the reason why I started out with that was because I guess it seemed interesting to me that if we started talking straight out the gate about, this is a game where we are running the East Indian Trading Company, I think most people would have an assumption about what type of game it is.
Yeah, you're right.
Because I did going into it, and then it turns out when the game was over that that it was not that type of game necessarily, which isn't an issue.
To be fair, I probably came in with a similar feeling to you.
You had actually done homework on this.
Yes, I guess. Yeah, I mean, knowing the designer, knowing some of his previous efforts, knowing
which
the
I mean,
theme,
just tell the people that's things like Root and Oath and Pax Pamir, right? I mean, like,
right. I was a little, but the part we're not mentioning is that this is, he did not completely design this. He designed the second edition, right? The first edition was designed by somebody else.
I didn't remember that, but
maybe I'm wrong. But I thought, just like Pax Pamir, he did not design the original Pax Pamir. He redesigned it for its second edition and changed it considerably. But
okay.
But he did not design Pax Pamir.
I'm gonna look this up while we are carrying on.
Okay. Well, so Trevor, I guess now that we've spent 15 minutes discussing the category of the game, do you want to give?
I'm wrong. He did design the first edition of the game.
But what you're not wrong about is there were significant changes between.
Yes, there were significant changes. Okay, sorry, Jay. What did you just say?
I said, now that we've talked 15 minutes about the category of the game, do we want to give an overview of the game itself?
Sure. So in the game, you go through what I would call periods or ages or years of the East India Trading Company. There will be various phases, and you follow the phases every year. The first phase, your first couple of phases, you're basically doing things in London. You're assigning your resources. You're trying to figure out what to do. And then you do basically what I would say is the company phase, where you go through and do things based on company leadership, which gets assigned from the things that you did in the first phase. So the first company role is like the CEO, basically the chairman of the board. And then they kind of assign other roles, and then those roles assign other roles, and each of those roles has actions they can take. And some of those actions involve company administration. Some of those actions involve administration in India, whether it be governorship or presidentship of sections of India, or whether it be military actions. And we'll get into it, but this is a very much colonialism style game, and if that offends you, then we highly recommend you don't play. If you're playing it because you like to enslave people, we
revisit dark times in human history.
No, if you like to enslave people, we recommend that you go get help. If you like to revisit dark times in history, then maybe this is the game for you. If you like it for the historical value. Anyway, I don't want to get into that yet. We'll get into it later. But and then the last phase is sort of a resolution and cleanup. I'm trying to remember some of the phases in that section.
There's upkeep. There's revenue and expense. Gaining revenue, paying expenses for the company, and then there's which is, to me, is the cherry on top of this game. There's the parliament phase.
Oh yeah. I forgot about
where
the parliament
you
phase.
Pass a law, and the negotiations are both hot and heavy, and mistakes can be made, and fortunes and careers can be shattered in a moment.
Yeah, and the political phase feels like a lot like TI4 political phase, but ramped up a little bit, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, and like ramped up partly, I felt like, because I think there's more options than you see in a TI3 political or TI4 political phase, and the laws, like, they actually do have a significant in-game effect. It feels like to me.
They can, yes.
Yeah.
Some of them not as much as others.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But sometimes it feels like the law that you're voting on in TI4 has little to no impact. I rarely felt that situation here.
Right.
It always felt like the law is going to have some sort of impact.
And part of that is really the mechanic of, like, the prime minister, whoever has that role in the game, they're sort of playing a push your luck game of turning over more laws. Like, they can turn over up to 3, and there are some laws that if they turn them over, they have to do that law. But other than that, they have some, agency in, like, okay, this is going to be the law, and this is, the tax or the benefit that's going to kind of be tacked on to the law. I mean, there's just, like, some cool decision points there, and that's part of what makes it more robust than a TI4 political phase.
Yeah, and the bonus that the prime minister chooses, or the tax, or whatever it is, he gets to choose where it's going to go or what's going to happen. That is part of the vote. Like, it impacts all the players at the table. And I guess the part that makes it better than TI4 as far as the political game is concerned is that if the prime minister fails, he loses the job. It goes to somebody else at the table, and it raises the stakes considerably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and then it's rinse repeat. I think there's 4 scenarios that the game ships with, and the scenario that we played was basically 5 turns, so you rinse repeat for 5 turns or less in some cases. And the other scenarios, I think the longest scenario might be a 10-turn scenario.
I will also mention that this is a co-op competitive, in that you're trying to earn the most points,
prestige,
fame, and money, and other things. But the company itself, if it fails, I shouldn't call it co-op competitive, because if the company fails, it just triggers a earlier victory point count.
Yeah, it means that some people might score points in a different way,
Yeah, it doesn't indicate that everyone loses, which is normally what a co-op competitive does.
Yeah,
but it still feels like that.
I'm kind of curious on what you guys think on this part of it. So, first off, I will say that this is a genre of games that I find pretty interesting. Another example of a game that we've played that has kind of the similar feel is one where we were playing in the Roman Empire, and we're trying to keep the Roman Empire running together, but we're still trying to look over our own self-interested things while doing that. And if you are too greedy, if everyone's too greedy, then the empire falls to barbarians.
A la Josh.
Yeah, I mean, we've played multiple games like this. Republic of Rome is the one that Jay's talking about, and the one we more recently played was Founding Fathers.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
And so the thing that, I guess the question I had with this was, so in this game, if the game ends early, then, like Trevor said, it's not a everybody loses scenario. It's we're going to go to end game scoring and see who has the highest score and who won. Do you like that, or do you think you would like it better if it was we're all losers and there's no winner if you don't get to the end of the scenario?
I liked it more that there's still winners, because the other way that you're talking about, where, like, we're all losers, it just changes the incentives, right? Like, the fact that you could still win because you hedged your bets against the company and did just enough to, feather your own nest while the company burned in flames. I like the incentive structure there.
It seems like if you got familiar enough with the game, that there could definitely be scenarios where someone's like, you know what, I think if the game ended right now, that I would win, and so therefore I'm going to try to destroy the company.
Yeah, I think you could potentially see scenarios of that. So the second game that we played without Jay, because he needed to leave, we examined it at the end, and Trevor and I were sort of saying, like, okay, if we had made a different decision point one turn ago and tried to tank the company, then my dad, would not have won. And we were looking at it going, holy cow, that would it isn't just a binary decision of I'm tanking the company or I'm supporting the company. Like there are some roles that would have to go your way, I think, regardless, you know. Like there's enough chaos built into this system that you would have to ride the avalanche just right to not get buried. But there are absolutely those scenarios, Jay, where all of a sudden at least one or two players are going to go, it is in my best interest, you know, for none of this to go well, basically.
The most interesting part of that, I think, is that it is a complex machine going on at the table. The company does a good job of recreating an actual company, and forcing the company to tank is a big rolling lumbering machine, and to get it to tank is not easy. It's funny because
it's also not easy to get it to succeed.
Yeah, to get it to succeed is not easy either, and it feels like without the possibility of victory in the company's defeat, I think everyone would probably just make the right decisions to keep the company afloat, and it would never, some of the tension would never be there, or you would never consider going the other direction. I actually like it, and I think if you'll remember in Republic of Rome, I believe there's times where you want to tank the country as well and allow you to be basically named dictator multiple times. To become dictator for life. That's the goal of the game, is to become dictator for life. So you're trying to cross the Rubicon, so to speak, and so it is sort of similar here in a way that I like the option of trying to force the company to tank at the right time. And the truth is that what happened in the game that Josh and I and his father played is that I feel like both Josh and I sort of mismanaged the company for several rounds.
I thought he was gonna fail. It's not my fault.
And then we hand the reins over to his father, basically going, we're basically handing him, the crashing ship into the iceberg, and we're like, we're gonna make you responsible for all this. And then he recovered, and like amazingly so well, to the point that he destroyed us.
He's scoring all types of victory points, recovering the company.
Yeah. Scored,
the company made more money than we ever could have conceived of, basically.
Yeah, it was ugly. Honestly, I mean, in hindsight, I think that in time, you'll be able to, when you learn the intricacies of the game, that won't happen as often. I feel like that was sort of because we didn't understand the mechanics.
Yeah, you would say things like, Josh, you imbecile, he has all the presidencies, don't give him the chairmanship.
We handed him basically all the reins and none of the money, and he was able to take the little money we had, put it in the right locations, and make serious bank. Like we totally screwed up. We just basically thought we were handing him a crashing ship, and instead we were giving it to him right at the teeter-totter of risk, where he won it all.
Yeah.
And there was at that point the game was over. Josh looked up to me and he said, we've screwed up. We've handed him the game.
We die.
Yes. Yes. It was that moment, 100%.
Okay, well, so enough of this boring second game. Let's talk about the super interesting, glorious first game. What happened in that one?
Let us indeed. Let us speak of failure and fires. I actually
the mistakes were many in the first game as well.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember. Where did we fail? So the first game, I mean, the short
Where
version
did things go wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, so the
we
first
only
game,
played 3 rounds because the company failed.
Yeah, so the first game failed in multiple reasons. I think the first reason is we mismanaged risk. So we spent too much money trying to mitigate risk, I feel like, and ended up, and in some cases spent too much and it failed.
Yeah, right.
Like
consequently, we just did not make enough money.
We were not making enough money. Additionally, I don't think we realized how badly the company was being steered. I mean, we kind of did, but we didn't realize how badly it was going. Like in hindsight,
clearly some of us knew more than others. In
hindsight, I'm like, holy crap, we just ran the company straight into the ground from the beginning. Like it was like we didn't even veer up. Like if you
No,
saw the stock price,
I'm not even sure
of
we
East
pulled on
India-
the stick.
Yeah, the East India Trading Company's stock price just went. It was like just a cliff.
Free fall.
Yeah, free fall off. We didn't even turn around at any point. And then the other part that we screwed up on is the Jay was the
This is
prime minister. Was the prime minister, and we never once tried to get it out of his hand.
Not with any real effort. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, so he remained the prime minister while we ran our company into the ground. Game and surprise, surprise, the guy in political power wins. Like, you know, I in hindsight, it's also clear to me now.
I mean, what was interesting too is the other thing that Jay did well, and I don't know that when I looked at Jay, he was not being super intentional. Like he wasn't doing it because he thought it was winning strategy, but he basically ran the military for the company all 3 rounds, you know, and so
I mean, I
feather his nest with that pretty good.
Yeah, I basically started the game, was like, I don't really know anything about this game or what's going on, but it seems like the things that I was dealt strengths in at the start of the game, I'm going to try to play towards these, and so that was what I tried to do.
I think that's a good thing, but you also the flip side is I was dealt some cards that so I was dealt cards that gave me great positions of power and very little money, and as a first time player I had no clue how to deal with that power. And so I think if I were to go back and play the same position today that I would be in much better shape, but I still think that it's pretty hard. I think going forward, and this is my recommendation to anybody who plays this game, after you play the first game, I think from there on out you should draft.
I agree, actually. Yeah.
I just think that
it won't take that much longer. I mean, it might add 3 minutes to your setup, but I think it will give you a more robust play experience.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Trevor.
I was just saying, let's talk about the colonialism of the game, because I think that it's
important.
It's relevant. It's important. And it's going to turn some people off. For others, it won't. But it is something we need to address.
So we finished the game, and while I appreciated the game, and I was glad that I got to play this with my friends, there's also part of me that it's not going to be like one of my top 10 games or whatever. And part of that, and I've tried thinking, we talked a little bit about it after the game, and I've tried thinking some about it since the game as well. And part of it is related to the theme. Like, for example, you are like, some of the actions are literally looting provinces in India, or putting down revolts in India with military, or you are doing an action to try to make money, but then your bonus of it is that you're going to get a graft, and then that's going to help your family get additional money and prestige and etc. And so
you're literally exploiting the industry and people of India to further your family's position.
Yes. And so
I said literally, but I mean figuratively.
Yeah. Good point.
Sorry, I live with a bunch of teenagers. I can't help myself.
So it was just, I think Trevor or Josh, one of you asked if it would have felt different if this had been, instead of themed off of India, if we were running a space combine that we were in business together. And I think that would probably make me enjoy it more. But as I've thought more about it, I think part of also what is, I think this kind of ties back to the discussion about what category this game goes into for me, because I think that I kind of instinctually, when I started realizing that this is kind of more of, or it has some Ameritrash aspects to it, there are part of the fun for me of Ameritrash games a lot of times is that there's almost like a role-playing aspect of it.
Right.
And the thought of role-playing running a space empire is a lot more appealing to me than role playing a colonizer who is ravaging India.
A British lord, yeah.
Yes, a British
I mean,
lord.
on paper, you're totally correct. Like I totally agree. Like if somebody said we're playing an RPG tonight, you have two choices. You can
Right.
play a space colonizer, or you can play a British colonizer in the East India Trading Company. I mean, there really isn't any choice. There's no reason why you would ever pick the British colonizer. You would always pick space.
Yeah.
Or fantasy. I mean, Jay did say it the other day, and it made me think a lot after the game. I'm like, because this is again the designer who brought us things like Oath and Root.
Right.
And this could reskin into a anthropomorphic animal fantasy land.
It could be in Root. It could be in the same world.
Right.
Oh, geez.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. And you would lose very little, I think.
So I do think you would lose some, and here I'm going to defend, and I sometimes hate being on this side, but this type of game I love. Honestly, I haven't played enough of this game yet, but this style of game just ends up being in my top whatever quickly. So Republic of Rome, Founding Fathers, John Company, they are all very similar in their style and what they're the feeling they're trying to portray, and they're all historical. And honestly, they all involve colonialism and slavery.
Terrible human people.
Correct. So I guess I'm not in love with the theme on. Well, I do enjoy the Rome theme quite a bit, and I do enjoy the old America theme, and I enjoy those themes more than this one. I will say that as well. This is my least favorite theme of the three. However, I do like learning about and figure. I knew very little about the British's involvement in India, other than what I've read in some related books, like Secret Garden, I guess, is an example.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't know a whole lot about it, and so my basis in history comes from board games in many cases, and that's not a good way to learn history, I'll admit, but it is a fun way to open your horizons and find out more about history, and then go somewhere else and learn more about it. History is ugly. It's bad. If you're not embarrassed by it, you're not really learning it. So, I am embarrassed by the histories that these things portray in some cases, but I still enjoy learning about it or portraying it in board game form. So,
well, and I don't want Trevor to feel. Go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
Do you feel like the game was effective at teaching you some things about this period?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't. So one of the things that's interesting is India itself is not unified at this time, and so some of the fights that go on the board are India fighting India, not necessarily the British fighting India. And I didn't really know that. I guess you learn quite a bit about the history. Now, did I learn tons? Am I going to be able to go out and make a dissertation on Indian history? Heck no, not at all. But it would if a movie about the time period were to come up, I would have more interest in it now than I did prior. And I'd be more likely now to pick up a book about this period in history than I would have been prior because of this board game. So is that part of it successful? I think so.
To tie back real quick to what I was saying before, there's part of me that is curious if, say, for example, this game did not have the dice rolling, and if it felt more of a pure Euro game, if I wouldn't have felt as much of a recoil or distaste to it, because it wouldn't necessarily have the feeling of me assuming this role-playing aspect.
Well, that's interesting because there are quite a few Euro games that we've played in our history that are at least near or adjacent to this history. Like I'm thinking of Goa. We talked about Puerto Rico at one point in time. I mean, the truth is a lot of the trading in the Mediterranean's, this theme, quote unquote, is in there.
Especially, obviously, I'm curious if I were to, Puerto Rico was one of my first Euro games I ever played, and I played a ton of it. And I'm curious, and it didn't even really blip on the radar for me at the time. Some of the things that are going on with the theming of that game. I'm curious if I were to play that now, and what my reaction would be to it. But there's part of me that thinks that part of why I had issues with John Company was because it did feel a little bit more Ameritrash than I expected. So
That's a hard, that's a hard thing to answer.
yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know, but I can definitely see that you are definitely taking a more
Active.
personalized role in
that's a
the
good way to say it.
actions of what's going on than you are in some of those other games where really you're making mechanical choices.
And I mean, I guess really another aspect of it is that, and I mean, I guess this is potentially to the credit of John Company, but in a lot of Euro games, the theming is very light. It could really, you're trading spices in the Mediterranean, but it could really be almost any theme. It's really
the mechanics.
The mechanics.
They're taking center stage.
Yeah.
What is the focus of this? And there were a lot of times in John Company where that wasn't the case. This wasn't a feeling of I'm doing something of mechanics. It was feeling like you're actually playing a colonial British lord. So at least for myself.
Well, I want to add one thing to this conversation so that Trevor doesn't feel like he's alone as the apologist, right? Because I think we talked about this a little bit. I said, I think Jay's concerns are totally valid. I could totally understand, that being a concern or a turnoff to people. But I had to admit that like part of what drew me to purchase this game with the Kickstarter metal coins and be hyped up to get my co-hosts to come try it, was the examination of history. Like it was the designer. It was that I could tell as I had watched some playthroughs and read some reviews that it was going to have the kind of chaos that just makes me salivate.
And I will agree with Trevor that the theming of playing consoles in Rome is more interesting to me, even though really if you look
with a critical eye at that.
Yeah, if you look any deeper, it's not like Rome was
any better than Britain.
Yes.
No, they were honestly probably
they were
worse.
the great grandfather of Britain.
Yeah.
What do you like?
Yeah, I mean they enslaved everyone. They
all the people all the time.
Yeah, they did some very horrible things.
Yeah. Well, we're starting to get to time on the episode. What
speed round? Are we grading this thing or what?
Do you want to grade it, or do we want to give final thoughts? What do you want to do?
Well, let's do a quick grade. We'll just go through the categories quickly.
All right.
Okay. Design. For me, it is a 9 for art style. The mechanics filled with chaos. Like I'm the target audience for all of this. I would love it if it were set in the Root world. I won't even pretend like I wouldn't. So there you go.
I do like the setting. The setting could be a little bit better. I do like the risk management. I like the way that it handles the randomness. It's right up my alley as far as what type of game. And I do feel like having seen the original version and some intermediate versions on YouTube, I think he's refined it to a high degree. However, I'm going to dock a little bit for the theme and for the randomness because while I do like it, it's still a detractor. So I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay, Jay.
I'm going to shock Trevor and give it a 9.
Jeez.
Because I actually do think that it's a well designed game.
Yeah. Okay. The next category would be time management. I actually am giving this higher marks than I expected to because we got up and started at 7 because we thought we were going to need 5 to 6 hours to play. And you could potentially need 5 to 6 hours, but it was like we ended up playing 2 games of it because the first game ended a little bit unexpectedly, but I don't think it would be that unusual that things could go, down in flames that way.
Here's my main, counter to that, Josh, is that things worked out in this instance to where you could do 2 games fairly quickly, but there also could be like kind of the random happenstances. It feels like to where it goes a fair bit longer than what you expected.
Yeah, I think that is fair. But so that's why I'm not giving it the highest marks, but it is above average enough that it's a 7 for me on time management. Go ahead, Trevor.
So I am going to give it high marks here, and this is the reason. Its competitors, Republic of Rome and Founding Fathers, are way longer and way overstay their welcome in comparison. Not that I don't love them.
Yeah.
But Republic
You like
of Rome,
the overstaying of the welcome.
I do in this particular situation, but Republic of Rome especially is way too long. And Founding Fathers helps that. It's much shorter, and it is a good length for this style of game. But John Company takes all of that and packs it into a smaller time frame and really does a great job of it. So for me, this is a 10. I realize it's a long game, and for people who don't like long games, it is absolutely not your cup of tea. But if you're looking for this, if you're looking for this style of game, these are the 3 options. This manages the time the best.
Jay, your time management thoughts?
I'll go with the 7.
All right, I like it. So repeatability, it's a solid 9 for me. I want more plays of this. I basically am trying to infect more people in the world with the desire to play it, so that I can more easily gather. One thing I'll say on time management, which kept me from going higher, is I am curious to play a 6-player game of this to see how bad does it get, right?
Yeah, that's fair. My grade might go down if we played a 6-player game.
Right. But anyway, it's a 9 for me on repeatability. Trevor?
It's a 10 for me right now, and maybe that's just because I'm hot and heavy for it currently.
Yeah.
It's probably going to go down a little bit. It's one of those games where you can only probably handle so much of it. I mean, you can't. It's like Republic of Rome. You can't play back to back games of Republic. You have to temper yourself.
Yeah.
But I do have a high level of repeatability. Like it is. If you said let's play a board game today, I'd say I won't do it unless it's John Company.
I love it. Jay?
Yeah.
I'll go
But
for an 8.
number wise, I'm going to give it a 7 or 8.
Okay, on repeatability. Okay, so fun. Like I have to give this a 10. Like it would be unfair for me to not give this a 10. Like the fact that this creates moments where Trevor looks across the table at me and is like, I literally just made the worst mistake I've ever made in my board gaming history. I will never make a deal with you again. Like I know that's partly me and it's partly my fault, but the game just tees up those kind of moments, right? I love the chaos. I love the failure as much as I love the success. I mean, when Trevor rolls 666s, I can't help but giggle. So this thing, and I will admit, like this is a failing of mine. Like I'm able to not have the theme sort of like pull down my fun meter, I guess, and it probably should. But there you go.
For fun, I think I'll go with a 7.
All right.
So for me, fun is going to be a 9, only because I actually think I have more fun with Founding Fathers. So I'm going to grade it in that scale,
Sure.
against those other games.
But part of that is that you do connect to the theme more in Founding Fathers, right?
Yeah, I'm with Jay a little bit here. I trying to stop slavery or trying to save the U.S. country is more of an interesting RPG thematic theme to me than doing what you do in John. That does, don't get me wrong, it does bleed a little bit into my thought process. It's just not as much as it does for other people, to the point where it's distasteful to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I Founding Fathers is I'm attached to it more. It's more interesting to me. That's the 10 in this type of game. Republic of Rome would be if the mechanics were better. That's the theme I would latch onto by far the most. But it's just not as fun as these other 2. But I had a lot of fun. It's a 9 for me.
Okay. So then the overall, I mean, this is where I will probably let the caution about the theme pull my score down a little bit. I'll give it a 9 overall. I'm super happy with the purchase. Like, I think I said it early on, like I'm basically trying to decide if I can, there are several of my older children who I could get to play this with me, but do I pack it on a plane and haul it? I mean, I think it would be half my luggage weight. So that's part of my challenge there. But
I also don't think your family would. Well, maybe I'm wrong.
My older kids would, yeah. But like,
you think so?
Yes, a couple of them. Although, well, some of them would definitely have Jay's reaction to the theme, which would be interesting to process, I guess. So anyway, it's still a 9 for me overall. Go ahead, Trevor.
It's only an 8 for me. I think the more I think about the randomness, the more I wish that it had been redesigned to the point where that could have been limited or
More
taken out.
mitigated. Oh, yeah.
I do like the risk mitigation, but I would have maybe have liked some way to have a greater degree of risk mitigation to the point where you could almost eliminate it if you're willing to pay the price. And you kind of are, I guess, but it just bugs me in the back of my head that I'm like, if I roll these 5 dice, I could roll straight 5s and 6s.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go probably with an 8, and it feels like I've been critical of the game. I do think it's well designed, as I said. I think this goes back to one of my, I guess, board gaming character flaws, in that I think that I finished the game and was like, I enjoyed this game. I was glad I played it with my friends, but it's kind of an opportunity cost issue for me, where
Yeah.
I'm like, I could have played Twilight Imperium with my friends instead.
Yeah.
Which I probably would have enjoyed more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So I guess this can sort of be final thoughts, but audience, I mean, I think you definitely have to be a certain breed of person and gamer to take interest in this.
You need to enjoy even beyond the theme. Like if the theme turns you off, then don't even worry about it. Just find another game.
Right.
Yeah.
If the theme is not turning you off and you're willing to try it, you still have to be willing to like negotiation, bribery, pushing your luck, voting, negotiating, chaos. Like there's so much social about this game that has nothing to do with the mechanics.
Political machinations.
Yep.
Yeah, if you're not interested in those things whatsoever, then you need to turn around right now. It is also quite complex. So, as Josh put it, it is it does take a very specific and special type of gamer that wants to do a 4+ hour game with heavy mechanics and difficulty of understanding how to win, and on top of that, negotiation, bribery, social aspects. Which, I mean, to me, you're like, all of those are singing my song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. So it's a solid go for me. Trevor, go, no go.
Oh yeah, absolutely go.
And Jay, where does it come down in the end?
I mean, I'm still glad that I played it. So
I like that.
I guess I would say go.
I'll call it a qualified go from Jay.
Okay.
A go if there's nothing else available.
Yeah, there you go.
Go, but why aren't you playing Twilight Imperium instead? That's probably not fair, but all right. Well, normally I say at this point, let us know what you think of this game, but I'm assuming that none of our listeners have played this game, nor will they. So maybe this will inspire you to check the game out, and we'd love to hear it if it does.
There you go.